other institutions to conduct these programs, including Acharya Shikumar Sen Mahavidyalaya Purva Bardhaman, Educational and Cultural Station of Ramakrishna Mission Vidya Mandir Belur, Salesian College Siliguri and Sonada, Siliguri College of Commerce, the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, and now, of course, with Coach Bihar College. We at Birpada College strongly believe that such partnership between institutions spread over large geographic areas will prove crucial in the post-pandemic world. Which brings me to topic of this webinar, State of Democracy in Asia, Experience and Expectation. The COVID-19 pandemic has turned our lives upside down and brought specific challenges to both the state and its citizens. We are already in the new normal, but how different the new normal will be from the pre-pandemic times may determine the future course of democracy in Asia and indeed the rest of the world. So I congratulate the conveners of this international webinar, S.K. Kamarujaman of the Department of Sociology, Birpada College, and Dr. Shukanta Ghosh of the Department of Political Science, Coach Bihar College, for choosing this timely topic. The webinar has a wonderful panel of speakers, and like everyone else, I am looking forward to their presentations in these difficult times. Our keynote speaker, other research persons, distinguished guests, and other participants have all overcome significant challenges to join this webinar. I thank each and every one of them for being here today. The technical matters of this webinar are being handled by Sanjay Das of Galaxy IT Station. Thank you all. Now over to Sean. Hello, Sean. It's over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for embracing the audience with your welcome speech. Now, I would like to call upon Abdul Qadir Safili, Honorable Registrar of Coach Bihar Panchan and Burman University, for his inaugural speech. Sir, are you among us? Sir Abdul Qadir, are you among us to give the inaugural speech? Zaman sir, can you hear me? Zaman sir? Nikhilesh sir, is Abdul Qadir sir among us now?
Shan, this is Nikhilesh from Birpada College. I believe that our convener, Dr. Shukanto Ghosh, has tried to get in touch with the registrar, but he is not here today among us. So please move on to the next point. Thank you.
Okay, sir. I would like to call my co-host, Dr. Shukanto Ghosh from Coach Bihar College now to take forward the webinar. Dr. Shukanto Ghosh, over to you. Dr. Shukanto Ghosh, are you here?
Shan, are we waiting for someone? This is Nikhilesh.
Yes, sir. Dr. Sukanto Ghosh was supposed to introduce Islam of
Uh,
Bangladesh.
right. Shan, I think that Sukanto is also facing some problems, technical issues. So he is not able to join right now. Would you be able to please introduce our keynote speaker?
Okay, sir, I'll do it then.
Thank you
No
so much,
problem.
Shan.
Okay. Since my co-host Dr. Shukanta Ghosh could not make it to the webinar right now because of some technical issues, I'll take the webinar forth, and I would like to do the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Mohammad Mainul Islam, from Department of Population Science, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. Dr. Moinul Islam is the professor and chairman of the Department of Population Sciences of the University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. He is also the project director of the strengthening capacity of teaching and research facilities at the Department of Population Sciences, University of Dhaka. He had held the position of elected member of the syndicate, the highest decision-making body of the University of Dhaka, for two consecutive terms between 2010 and 14. Professor Dr. Mohammad Mainul Islam received his PhD in demography from the Institute of Population Research at Peking University, China, specializing in population health in 2009. He got his bachelor's and master's degrees in sociology from the University of Dhaka. Before that, he passed the secondary and higher secondary school certificate exams from the Mirzapur Cadet College, Tangier. Dr. Islam completed a global health research capacity strengthening program, postdoctoral fellowship at McGill University, Canada, between 2013 and 14. He also got training at the Johns Hopkins Paul Institute at Barcelona, Stanford University, Brown University, and the University of Berlin. He was awarded the first prize of the Academy Excellence Award 2018 of Peking University, China, and later he was named as a Nick Simons Scholar of the New Investigator in Global Health program of the Global Health Council, Washington, D.C., USA in 2010. He is a two-time winner of the 10 Best Abstracts of the New Voices in Global Health program, receiving these accolades in 2014 and 16 at the World Health Summit in Berlin, Germany. His work broadly focuses on population and development, reproductive health, child health, urban health, health communication, global health, and social demography. Professor Islam has attended and presented his research at more than 100 international meetings and academic conferences around the world. He was a keynote plenary speaker and invited the organizing committee of the first and second national conference on sexual and reproductive health and rights at workplace 2018-2019, Dhaka, Bangladesh. Dr. Islam has contributed to over 50 peer-reviewed publications, including publications of research findings as first author in the Lancet Global Health, Journal of Global Health, BMC, Women's Health, and others. He has also authored and co-authored conference papers and other publications. Bangladesh and population, health, and other educational issues. On various occasions, he was interviewed by many international and national broadcast, electronic, and print media. Professor Dr. Islam is a member of the Population Expert Group Committee of the General Economic Division Standing Commission within the Ministry of Planning of the Government of Bangladesh since November 2017. He worked as a member of the task team of Action Report on Population and Development of Bangladesh and represented the government of Bangladesh as a member of delegation delegation at the midterm review of the Asian and Pacific Ministerial Declaration on Population and Development. Escape, Bangkok, November 26 to 28, 2018. Representing the academia as a member of Bangladesh delegation, we also attended the Nairobi Summit on ICPD 25, Accelerating the Promise, which took place from 12th of November to 14th of November 2019 in Nairobi. Republic of Kenya. As an invited panelist, Dr. Islam attended the expert group meeting on monitoring implementation of the Asian and Pacific Ministerial Declaration on Population and Development, UNCC, Bangkok, Thailand, 23rd to 24th of November 2019. He is also a member of various national level technical committees, including Bangladesh Population Housing Census 2021 project, Strengthening Environment, Climate Change and Disaster Statistics project, Monitoring the Situation of Vital Statistics of Bangladesh, second phase project. Professor Dr. Islam has a professional involvement in various associations, including the International Union of Scientific Study of Population, the International Sociological Association, the Asian Population Association, the American Population Association, the Canadian Coalition of Global Health Research, the Center for Health Trends and Forecasts, affiliate network of the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington. He was inducted as a Rotarian of the Rotary Club of Dhaka Cosmopolitan Rotary International on September 12, 2019. And that was a very impressive introduction, actually. I would like to call upon Mohammad Mainul Islam now to please embrace the audience. So please, over to you now.
Well, can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, so now I'm going to share my presentation. So if it's share, then let me know. Okay. So is it possible to see my slides?
Yes, sir, we are able to view it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so it's my great pleasure and greetings to everyone. And you know that we are passing a very difficult time, and you have seen that some technical difficulties also is prevailing. So what I would like to say that before going my presentations, I would like to greet each and every one of you who have joined this international webinar on state of democracy in Asia, experience and expectations. Even particularly, I would like to give my thanks to the organizers, Department of Sociology, Birpara College, and the Department of Political Science, Kochi Bihar College, and also the conveners, two conveners for this event. But basically, I'm not a political scientist, and a few minutes ago, you have got to know about my background and profile information. I think a lot of things are stated there. But to be honest, what I'm saying, thinking that I'm a learner. Every day I'm learning new things. I'm not a political scientist, but my background is in demography and sociology. And based on that, actually, my work also relates to population, and population is also related to politics somehow. So we are interconnected. We are living in an interconnected society. And as long as the COVID is going on, and in these situations, we have to take into consideration a lot of issues. But before going to start my presentations, particularly focusing on South Asia in the demographic and democratic transitions, challenges and prospects. So I'm not sure that how much you enjoyed this talk, but let me introduce my presentations part by part. So as you have got to know that the title we are talking about the demographic and democratic transitions. Uh, might be for political scientists, they are much more aware about the democratic transitions. But for being a demographer or population scientist, you also want to see the linkages between democracy and democracy in some way. So, and based on the experience from the global context as well as also from the South Asian context, I will go through my presentation. So let me start. If we see that first slide, this is the overall, if you think about the most world populated countries in the world. So if you think about how many countries, the top 10 countries of the world in terms of population uh, are there in South Asia. So you will see that India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. These are the three major populated countries uh, in South Asia who are contributing at global populations in a part way. But as long as my presentation is focusing on South Asia, but at the same time, we have to think that this population will be increased day by day, like until 2050. And there is a recent study also was showing that how long the population size will be increased globally, and particularly for those countries. So over the years, if we think about that, this is the one of the latest study, July 14, uh, uh, published by the Lancet, one of the most popular journal. They are forecasting about the fertility, mortality, migration, and future population scenario will be in 2050, 2000, and also 2021. That means 2100 at that time. So, how long the population will be continued? And after that, when might be it will be declining. So there are some kind of projections, some methodological arguments, they are there. But the thing is that we have seen that in that article that the global population will be continued to until based on this article 2064, and after that it will decline. But during this time, also think about that how it will be happening in the South Asian countries, and why the population will decline in the globally, and how the South Asian population will be increased in the globally or not, and how will be the contribution. So in that context, I'm just talking about that average total fertility rate is declining, and I'll go through a little bit more after a while. But think that at this moment, globally, population growth rate, average annual growth rate, is concentrating mostly on Africa. But you have to think that the growth rate is a 1.1 to in between 2% is contributing in South Asia. And the is that there are different arguments of why population growth is like that, but it depends on demographic issues like fertility, mortality, and migration. These are the issues there. But if you think about that, what I'm going to talk this next couple of minutes regarding my presentations. So my presentations, I think that I will talk about the demographic transitions, how the population was before and how it is going on now, and then in democratic transitions, so what's happening about changes. And then I will try to make a linkage between demography and democracy. And then facts on demography and democratic transition in South Asia, particularly for South Asian countries focus. And I'll not go for more calculated methodological, but I'll try to make linkages and as a general perspectives. And then I'll go through the challenges and prospects, and then finally concluding remarks. So if you think about in the global map, so South Asia is contributing 1/4 of the total population. So in that context, you will see that this is a big number of population living in this South Asia. And in this South Asia, some of the countries, as I mentioned to you, their population size is much higher than any other countries. But we also need to think about the density or size of the population in that. So that is another parameter or to look up on that one. And in the presentations, if we first, I will start from the demographic transitions. So if we go through the demographic transitions, what is happening? In the demographic transitions, there are three processes. One is the fertility, one is mortality, another is the migration. These are the three basic processes processes which are contributing globally. And this is the classical Western model for demographic transition. So if you look through the left side or on the right side, you will see that the countries will be belonging to whether stage 1, whether they will be in stage 2 or 3 or 4, but based on their different parameters. And what is the parameters is like crude birth rate. So every 1,000 population, how many births are happening in a year? And then the same is like for CDR, crude death rate. It is also like every 1,000 population, how many deaths are happening this year. And now you know that due to COVID situation, definitely the CDR rate will be higher, because as long as the death rate is getting more every day is increasing. So if you think about that, well, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4, this is the classical way or pattern. Like if you think of the high birth rate, high death rate, and then high birth rate, falling death rate, then in stage 3 is like falling birth rate and low death rate, and stage 4 is both birth rate and death rate will low, and then population growth rate also become low. So this is the classic model what the Western countries are following, and even for most of the countries actually following, like South Asia too, in that context. So this is the generated from the East European context a long time before, but still the model is the fit at this current context. So if you think about that, high birth rate and high death rate, if decline, so there are some changes in the age structure of the population. So if there is some kind of changes in the population structure, then definitely elderly population will increase, because the child or young population will decrease as long as the fertility decline, mortality decline. So there are kind of changes in the age structure. So if you go through the map, you will see that elderly population will be increased a lot in coming times. Like if you compare between 1970 to 2050, that's a huge number of population will be increased. And some of the countries of the world already are facing the population aging. So birth rate and death rate one is a factor, and the other hand, life expectancy is also increasing over the years, and even South Asia too. So this is the demographic shift. I'm telling you about that stage 1, because once upon a time our fertility rate was more higher, and also mortality rate was higher, and day by day it was declining, but still there are kind of different challenges. But at this moment we have to think that, well, in South Asia too, you will see that elderly population will be increased in coming times. So this is the way how we think that demography, how impact in our political life or social life. So one is the health or mortality transitions, like high mortality to low mortality, and health transition, same age transition from young to old age population, migration transition from rural to urban or urban to urban transitions, fertility transitions. These are affecting our household or family life, which ultimately impact on our society. So in that context, if you think in that way, so in the society, politics is not the part of the society. And the democracy as a system functioning, the government, that is another concern. So whether is there any impact of demographic transitions? So let's come to the democratic transition at this moment. Then I'll go through. So number one question is how we will define the question of democracy, how we measure. And this is also different way we can define in a different way. And figuring out of democracy is a little bit problematic too. And sometimes we see the countries are neither in full democracies or nor full dictatorship. And extremely hard to measure the quality of their government in some way. Also, for few measures care about constraints on the elites. Sometimes how much we can check the president or prime minister role in by the parliament or other agencies. And also, we have to think that cares much more about the individual rights and personal freedoms. So that is another one thing important. That means some of the measurement was saying that mandatory voting as a bad for democracy because it infringes on individual rights. So someone is thinking that, well, if someone wants to stay at home and watch a cricket on election day, that should be his or her right. And that goes the argument. So that's actually concerned about the personal freedom, individual rights. So based on this, if we think about that measuring the percentage of population who votes in the election, that is another one kind of way of to measure also some kind of way democracy. But I'm pretty sure the panelists and those who are attending there, you're much more aware how we can measure democracy. But mandatory voting is punished or rewarded. That is depends on based on whether we think mass participation or individual freedom is true in the hallmark of democracy. And certain kind of disagreement also we can think we can also find among the thinkers. So this is a philosophical choice rather than methodological one. What I am saying that this is a very complex phenomenon how we measure democracy. Like for demography, we can easily calculate based on the size and based on the other process of measurement. But this one is a little bit difficult. But we have to measure some way. So there are much kinds of debate, no doubt, and no index or measurement is out of criticism. But as long as there is some kind of measurement, we should think about that carefully to handle those measurements. In that context, one of the index is the democracy index. That is the economic intelligence unit of Economist magazine. They used to do it. So in the democracy index, they are saying that electoral process and the pluralism, that is one of the category. Then civil liberties, functioning of the government, political participation, political culture. So these are the basic 5 categories they consider. And of these 60 indicators are categorized, and then countries are being ranked based on the full democracy, based on the score. So if the score is greater than 8, then it's a full democracy. But if the score is less than 8 and belongs to 6, then flawed democracy, then hybrid regime, and also authoritarian regime. These are the way of measurement in some way. So in that context, actually, full democracy, what does it mean they are saying? They are saying that nations where civil liberties and fundamental political freedoms are not only respected, but also reinforced by a political culture conducive to thriving the democratic principles. That means here government's functions are very much proactive, and diverse and independent media and government functioning are well balanced, and good governance are going on there. So these nations not only have the problems in democratic functions. Another one is for flawed democracies. This is the next category of democracies. There's nations where elections are fair and free, and civil liberties are ordered, but may have issues, like for media freedom, sometimes imprisonment or minor suppressions of political opposition on critics like that. So this is another kind of, but the democracy is there, but functioning. And also the functioning of the governments is going on there. And then hybrid regime. This is also another one kind of category that where nations are regular electoral frauds, preventing them from their fair and free democracies. So this is also problematic in terms of corruption, hazardment, or some pressure on political oppositions like this, and political culture, if we think in that way, low level of participation in politics, that is another one. The last one is authoritarian regimes. That is also nations where political pluralism is not existed, not severely limited. So based on this structure, actually, so before going to talk about this democracy index, the latest one, this is the global picture of the world where democracy, full democracy existed, where flawed democracy and hybrid regime and authoritarian regime. So if we ask the question that if we follow the latest democracy index, we'll find that Norway has been ranked number 1, and then the lowest one is like North Korea. So now the question is why they are like this. So we need to think about the quality of the democracy and what's kind of happening there. So before going to talk about that, I'm not going to talking about the Norway or North Korea, but regarding the South Asia is my main concern. And so in that context, if we think about another one dimension to think about the demographic transition or democracy, how they are interrelated or some kind of relationship we can find. So you see that here's my teacher, Tim Dyson. He's a professor of London School of Economics. I met him at Brown University in the USA in 2012. And I'm motivated by his thoughts also in some way that has the demographic transitions important positive consequences, including the phenomena promotion of and development of democracy. So he published a book on population and development, where thoughts about the issue of demography and democracy. And then we see that from his argument also, we find that democracy is indeed a useful indicator for democratization, for demographic perspective. How it's processed that long-term demography has shifted, and democracy also process where countries make transition from authoritarianism to democracies. And we know that demographic transitions had a dramatic change in population, as I mentioned to you through the model. And one question is that demographic transition can also help to create a democratic system of elected government. And how it may be possible. So Tim Dyson and Wilson, they in the first half in their demographic transition model, they are showing that increase the life expectancy of the people start to live healthier and longer lives. As long as mortality decline, fertility decline, so we see that life expectancy is increasing globally. So that means a healthier life or longer lives in some ways, but if we think in that way, so in the first half of the demographic transition that's happening. Second half of the demographic transitions, the proportion of older adults of the population becomes larger. Those who are children, they become adults, and adults, that means they're the number of eligible voters. So eligible to vote. So if the population, that means a young population transformed to an adult population, that means they are eligible for voting. So they are the potential voter. So in that context also, they are kind of civic engagement. They can participate in politics, they can participate in government phenomena or some other ways for policy decision making. But the children, they are not engaged in politics. So we have to think that where is the fertility mortality decline, where the mid population, that means median population, is high in terms of age category. Then another one is another consequence in that way, that due to demographic transitions, women are caring for fewer children, and they are more likely to enter in the labor market. So like in, if you think about like 30 years before, in South Asia, the TFR was much more higher than expected. Like for in Bangladesh, is like in 1970s, one mother used to have 6.4 babies, but at this moment it's now 2.3 or very close to the replacement level, 2.1. So this is a huge change. So in that context, actually, women, if they have more children, they may not join in the labor market. They may not join in for other atmosphere or other areas. So in terms of the career, skills and training, I think that is another one constant. And even also the women, they can join in the political system and politics, and they think their rights to establish. So this is one kind of way that how the demographic transition and then civic participation in politics or democracy. So this is the model based on the model on Tim Dyson. What he was showing that earlier, in the first half, if we think about that we are before in a traditional society, now transforming to a modern society. So based on that, actually, in the traditional society, there are some kind of characteristics in terms of population, and then also modern society, there are some kind of characteristics we have. So if you think about the traditional society, high mortality, that means the death rate is very high, fertility rate also very high. At that time, young population was there more, and mainly the people live in rural area, and then migration and mobility from rural to rural area at that time because of the economic system at that time. Economy was much more simple, and agriculture was the main factor. But and the status was ascribed. And then also gender differentiations was very strong. So it looks like that autocracy at that time, if we look through the characteristics. But if you think about the modern society, at this moment, as I showed to you the model of demographic transition model, we see that low mortality and also low fertility and old population aging is increasing, mainly urban, and migration from urban to urban, and also from economy is more complex now, non-agriculture, but industrial production, but service-oriented industry. And status is achievement based on your education, based on your quality. And then gender differentiation also reduced. So this also encourages a democracy. So you think that from tradition to modern society, from autocracy to democracy, how it might be interlinked. And in between, you see there are some circles, how they are interconnected in that way. But the thing is that what we are saying from autocratic society to democracy society is it's in a transitions or in a process of phase where some indicators are linkages there. So if we follow this way on the demographic and democratic transitions, consider the demographic transition in the Western or European context that also lights democratic transition that we want to show here. And another one thing in the long run or underlying ways, most of the demographic processes promote democratization. That's the another one thing. Thirdly, the fertility decline, which helps to empower women and consequent population aging. That's also like for demand and more equal and distribution of political power, participation in the political system. So based on the demography and democratic transitions, we think that slowing population growth should enhance the chance of social-political stability, which may also benefit democratization. So if population growth of a country is slow, that it also helps some kind of democratizations, social-political stability to ensure. So if we go through that way, so then I will show you some evidences then what's happening for demographic transition in South Asia. In that context, first demographic transition, then I will come to the democratic transition. So in that context, you see that crude birth rate and CBR in South Asia. CBR, you may not be familiar. CBR means crude birth rate. And CBR means crude death rate. That means every 1,000 population, how many births are happening and in a particular country. And same for death is happening there. So if you think that yes, their crude birth rate is declining and death rate is also declining, but after that also is increasing over time there. But if I want to show this figure in a table format, just have a look through crude birth rate and death rate. So you may think that 2000, 2015, if we think that 2015 to 2020, that's the mark where we are at this moment. And after that, it will be increasing. If you think about Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. So in that context, you see that while Afghanistan crude death rate is much more higher than any other, and also for Pakistan. These are two countries, and also for Sri Lanka is the lowest in terms of crude birth rate, higher birth rate. But for the death rate, if we see, then also you see that, well, Afghanistan is a 5.9, but death rate is Sri Lanka is increasing at this moment. Because I'll say that Sri Lanka's life expectancy is much more higher at this moment, and old age population is increasing by 2020 to 2025, it will be increased there. But if you think about up to 2020, then India is 7.4%. So these are actually the crude numbers to what we're saying, but this is not saying the actual phenomena. So let's about the total fertility rate. But in the previous slide, you see that definitely these numbers will vary. Depends on how your health system, how your political system, and how the good governance and other issues are there. This is the projected figure, not the actual figure there. But total fertility rate, if you think about also the projections, we see that every women, how many births are given in her reproductive span. As I mentioned to you before, that if you think about the 1950 to 1955, that the TFR, that it was quite high. All the countries in Afghanistan, even Bangladesh, as I mentioned to you, 1970, it was almost 6.9, 6.4. So even for Bhutan, India is also. So total TFR, total fertility rate, how many births are happening age 15 to 49 age group? A woman is giving birth in her lifespan, in her reproductive span. So if you think about the 2010 to 2015, you see that Bangladesh is very close to the replacement level of fertility. Even Bhutan, India is a little bit higher but close, and also for Maldives is also very sharp to the close replacement level. Nepal is also a little bit higher, and Pakistan is much more higher. So Pakistan and Afghanistan, these are the two countries where more TFR is happening, and it will be increase in some way. But we have to, but generally demographic term, we want to make it a 2.1. That is the replacement level of fertility. That's the expected level. If we think about the median age of the population, because the age is very important. In terms of median age, you see that the figures, Sri Lanka is much more higher. And then we see that Bangladesh 27, Bhutan 28, and also Maldives 29, India is 20. So these are the countries actually are in a good position in terms of demographic transition model based on the median age. But in terms of Afghanistan and also for others, so these are a little bit behind those countries. But this country is much more better position in terms of age parameter. Because why age is very important? Because age is important for demographic variable as well as also political process, voting behavior. That depends based on the age. In terms of the working age, also we have to think that median age is also very much important. Working age population, and if we think about the working age population, these are the two things: 15 to 59. This working age population will be increased for South Asian countries but after a while it will be declined. Like you see in 2020, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and also Maldives and Nepal, they are in a very good shape in terms of working age population. So they can contribute to the economy, they can contribute to the overall development based on the work. And if you think about the working age population is 64, and then in that context also we see that except Afghanistan, other countries cross 60%. But as long as the countries' working age population is much higher than non-working age group population, those who are dependent population. Dependent mean 0 to 14 and 64 plus age group of population. So generally, we think that we need a favorable population who can contribute to the economy. And also if you think about the population aging perspective, that is also that Sri Lanka, it's much more higher. And then for other countries is the increasing aging population, 60 plus population is increasing. But for Afghanistan and also for Nepal, Nepal it will 2020 it will be like this. This is the figure. This is the projected figure. So like in population aging, as long as if more elderly population is there, then we think in a different way, economic perspectives or even for political perspectives, how they will join in the system. That is another one concern. So in terms of demographic dividend or contribution, we have to think in that way. But now what I'm showing that, well, as long as the population size is increasing and also life expectancy is increasing, aging population is also another challenge for South Asian countries in coming times. Now comes to the sex ratio at birth in South Asian countries. So it's like a male-female variations at birth, during the birth. So you say that the India is quite higher, and then Pakistan also. So general expected level is up to 2000. We think that it is 100 to 105 or 6 is the rational level. But if it cross further, then we have to think about that what, is there any inequality, gender inequality, or any kind of problem might happen in the society. And this also some kind of make a linkage to the political phenomena in some way. And I will show you after a while little bit. So if you think about the sex ratio, male, female birth, that kind of variation we can see in South Asian countries. But for demographic perspective, definitely we have a much more concern, particularly for China also too, because where we find that sex ratio imbalance there. And some of the East Asian also from countries also we have seen such kind of experiences there. So I work on these issues. They are based on my expertise. As I studied in China also, I gone through their Chinese population policy, how they are contributing to the sex ratio in terms of fertility. We have found that they have also huge number of sex ratio imbalances there. So, and also based on the imbalances there, I also found another, I have published another paper, and their kind of marriage squeeze might happening there, which may also relates to the political system and even for the democracy or some ways. So as long as their kind of gender variations is there, so marriage squeeze that if more male boys are available or male adults are available, then but female adults are low, then to whom they will get married, then what might be the situation will be there. So that is another demographic marriage squeeze or concern. We have to think in that way. And such kind of high sex ratio or marriage squeeze. This may create gender-based violence, human trafficking, even prostitution, even overall crimes and violent behavior, which might be linked to the political aspects in some way. And also for internal disturbance or international conflict might be happening through high sex ratio imbalances. It's purely for what I'm saying, that for demographic perspective, we can see the risks, what might be happening. And then if we go to the democratic transition in South Asia, earlier what I have shown, all those things relates to demographic term, and now it's come to the democratic transition. So as I showed you before earlier, that there is an index, a democracy index. If you think about the South Asian countries characterized, where they are now. So if we think about, since democracy index start from 2006, so and then where the country's positions there. Definitely, I can see that India and Sri Lanka's position is much better than any other countries. And this is the overall score. Like for Norway is the number one, and North Korea is the lowest one in terms of the ranking there. So, and then also you see the rank and type of democracy. What type of democracy are availing in South Asia? So India and Sri Lanka, they are belongs to the flood, but and then Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and even Pakistan are in hybrid regime that I have shown you in my earlier slides. And Afghanistan, based on that index, it was showing that is an authoritarian structure. And then if you think about the democracy index in South Asian category score, so here very much important from demographic perspective, because we are thinking for, as a demographer, sociologist, we think that political participation is very much important, that how much people are joining the politics or participating in the votes or getting for the leadership. So age is an important demographic variable and ensuring relates to political participation. So overall score, if we think about those countries, and then if we go for the electoral process or pluralism, functioning of the government, and then for the political culture and civil liberties, so we have seen such kind of differentiations among those countries there. So here is the one kind of variations what I can see. Then you could show the demographic and democratic challenge in South Asia, because based on this, we have to say that what's happening. So in terms of demographic perspective, we see that population size is increasing, but further replacement level of fertility to achieve by South Asian countries, it needs to be taken into attention. And growing older population persons or rapid aging, it will be another one concern, which how they will be related to the democratic process. That's another one concern. And then we see that imbalance in sex ratio at birth, some of the countries, and that's create gender biased sex selection, that we are saying that GBSs. So as long as some preference in the societies is existing and patriarchal norms are existed there, and then also global total fertility rate is declining and technology is available there. So if I get to know the sex of the child earlier before, then I may decide that what will be my potential children who might be. So that kind of linkage is there. So imbalance might be sex ratio. That is another one challenge for demographic perspective, because if there is some kind of variations there, more gender inequality there, then political participation by sex, it will be challenged in coming times. Then also we see that in South Asian country, adolescence fertility, early pregnancy, and then this is due to early marriage or child marriage happening in South Asian countries. We have found there. So in that context, actually, or if someone get married, so as long as they used to have more births more earlier than later stages. So early pregnancy is a common phenomenon, and adolescence fertility is still high in this region. So that is another one concern. So if in that way, if we think that, well, these are affecting demography, but it will also affect in democratic way, like for educational attainment. So due to child marriage, due to early pregnancy, or any other concern, then it will affect higher educational or educational level to achieve, or completion of secondary or tertiary education. And then also for urbanization and civic liberties. So that is also a question of rights issues, as long as the urbanization is increasing there, but the quality of the urbanization is a matter concern, or planned urbanizations in terms of population. Then also good governance, that means the functioning of the government and electoral process, how they are. So there are kind of challenge facing among these countries we have seen. And then also lack of quality institutions. That is also another one concern. So if we think of the demography and democratic way, so like a few minutes ago, I was talking about that that education is one of the important variable. But we think that if education is related to the development indicator, a very good indicator, then literacy rate in South Asia is still not up to the mark, I think you see. So still you see that we haven't crossed the more than, uh, except Sri Lanka, other countries, if you think of the current literacy rate, it's not expected level. So literacy rate, and then if you go through the education, that means education is also related to democratic process or system. So education is another kind of way we have to think that how it will be more quality education should be provided. Afghanistan is much more lower. So if you think about the regime structure, we have seen that Afghanistan position is not good in that context. If we go through the index there, so but much need to be done here. Another one is urban population, you see. So this is a increasing rate at this moment, and I know that by 2050, almost a huge urbanization is happening in South Asia. And urban populations are living in the cities. That means population living in the cities. You can see there kind of variation among the countries there, but this will be increased over time. Then age dependency ratio, that is on the working age. That's what we have to think into another concern in coming times, because as long as the dependent population, working age population will decline and old age population will increase, then how they will contribute to the economy, and then also in politics, then also in other sectors. That's another concern. And then comes to the one of my latest work actually. How does the dependency ratio affect economic growth in the long term? We will, even it's a political matter we are talking now at this moment, but the thing is that the dependency ratio, that means working age population and dependent population, the ratio in between these two categories, we find that if dependency ratio lower, then economic growth accelerated among 15 Asian countries we studied together, and then we have found the long run implications of those. So it was suggested that as long as if we can favorable dependency ratio among those countries, economic growth or acceleration will be increased there. But if we not maintain that one, that will be challenge for Asian countries there. So but the question is the dependency ratio or working age populations increasing or something like that. But South Asia has a huge potential for demographic dividend. But demographic dividend, that means acceleration of economic growth. And that dividend to achieve, definitely political phenomena is very much important in some way. But the thing is that if you do the population structure, age and sex structure, we reduce fertility and mortality, then we can get a favorable population age structure, those who will work for economy. Then we have to think for their health. You know that now we are in the COVID situation. At this moment, we have understand that how the health system of South Asian countries are working. So we have to think that how much ensure strengthening the health system. And then health system, that means we need good health of the working age population, those will contribute. So good health of the population, that's very much important. And productive labor, that means healthy productive labor force. And then also needs for quality education. You have seen that literacy rate also very low. It's not up to the mark level. So education and quality education and skill-based education, that is very important. And then also for economic policies, what we are taking, but good governance is very much important at the governance and politics. This is how the policy is intervening. Are the policies really considering the age structure of the population in that way? If all these functions actually work together, then definitely we can get the maximum benefits of demographic dividend. But at this moment, South Asia are in a favorable position to get this maximum benefit, but needs proper implementation of policies and initiatives in this regard. Now comes to the demographic and democratic prospects in South Asia. So regarding these aspects, you see that demographic trends are more diverse. We have seen that our working age population are increasing, no doubt. And youth population, that means young dependent population, is decreasing. That's one thing. But this is also for old age population is also increasing there. But the thing is that how the segment of population is related to democratic process. Like, as I mentioned to you earlier before, political participation is very much important there. Whether this political participation, this voting behavior, or joining in the politics or the leadership. That means how the demography of South Asian countries are matter there. Actually, that is a prospects. I think there is a more contribution from the population perspective is possible through active collaboration and participation. So this is an opportunities, I think, at this moment. And then also we have to think that schooling and gender parity is must have to ensure. We have to think another one concern and democratic process also. We have to, while policy making process, we have to take into consideration that acceleration of education and reducing establishing gender equality in the society. And we have to think about the health and human capital. That is also very much important at this moment to think about that one, because as I mentioned to you, that health should be much more given focus on whether we are talking about demography or democracy, but health issues cannot be avoided there, because we need a quality citizen and a good healthy citizen. In that context, we need to focus on them. And also female labor force participation. Even I didn't show the slides there, but female labor force participation, we have to think that this is very much important in South Asian context to contribute, those who can also contribute in the democratic process overall there. So based on these slides, what are the concluding remarks I would like to mention there? Concluding remarks, I would like to say that the demographic change should keep being a top priority on the political agenda towards the democratic transitions. So why I'm saying that? Because sometimes we didn't consider the demographic structure of the population, but every policy making process, the demographic aspects should be taken into consideration. And particularly for democratic transition, as I mentioned to you, that if we need more participation for people's active participation, then definitely we have to think about the demographic parameters. So this is the one remarks. Secondly, DTM, that means demographic transition model. As I showed to you before earlier at the beginning of my presentations, that means the demographic transition model, few countries are in favorable position like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Bhutan. So, but other countries also have to be in the third stage of demographic transition model, because the third stage is the much more favorable, where fertility will decline, mortality will also decline, and then we will get a favorable working age population and adult population, those who can really work for the economy and also work for the politics and the political system as a whole. So that's another concern. But for that, we need more efforts through family planning, through other ways of procedure that what needs from the government perspective based on the own country context. Then secondly, and then thirdly, is the democratic transitions. As I mentioned also before, you see that democracy in South Asian countries are not same level at different countries. That's I'm telling about following the democracy index. So based on the index, if we think that definitely the index might have some limitations, but no doubt, but the index is giving one kind of idea. So absence of full democracy in South Asia is reflected based on that. But for India and Sri Lanka are better than any other South Asian countries where flawed democracy is prevailing there. And Afghanistan is in the autocratic regime based on the democracy index. But there are scopes to drive from hybrid regime for Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. These are the based on that. And then also we have to think another one concern, that 3D perspectives. 3D perspective, that the democracy, how you are defining the democracy, that is actually very important. So, and then also democracy, if we think about the system, or then demand, and then demographic dividend, these three should be interlinked, is any types of policy formulation or something like that. Like in South Asia, I think at this moment, and democracy needs to be much more matured level, no doubt. But some of the countries, they have a very good condition, but some of the countries are not in a good shape. But every day we are expecting that institutional development should be ensured there. So there will be no question on democracy. And then for demand, because for demand from the perspective that a working age population, also labor force participation, and the people's demand and supply. In that context, we see that we have a huge potential of our working age population, those who can work and then contribute to the economy and overall development of the country. So these 3 Ds actually are very much important in my understanding. And then what I would like to actually conclude based on my presentations, I think that we are at this moment, we are in the era of transitions. And transitions means, as we are saying, we are here are to explore the state of democracy in Asia, and we want to see the experience and expectation from other countries. But the more focusing on if you think about the South Asian countries or for Asian countries too, we think that fertility transitions is going on, health transitions is also going on, and mortality transition is also going on. And now we have seen due to COVID also, we have seen that fertility transition from high to low birth, and then from health, from communicable to non-communicable diseases. But now COVID, another communicable disease, by re-emergence of new diseases, communicable diseases, causes of death, what are the matters there, mortality transitions from high to low mortality transitions, and age transition, that is also very important in terms of demographic perspective. As I told you, that age transitions from children to adult age. That means, as I mentioned, in the median age of population, that means also for elderly population, if we think of older population in that context. So this is one kind of transitions, and why are these are happening? This is totally happening for demographic perspectives and what the policies we are taking there. And for migration transition, this is also happening in South Asia and even individual own country, from internal migration or international migration, and these are happening. And now, under different scenario of the world, we will see the different phenomena, how the working age population, whether labor force will work in their own country or in abroad, and how the global policy is shifting there, and urban transitions, family and household transitions is happening there, because the joint family structure is declining. Sorry, that means from nuclear family is increasing over time, and household size is also in transition. And now for the political transition, we are saying that we want to go to the maturity level from tradition to modernity. If we follow the Tim Dyson's model, then from tradition to modernity, from autocracy to democracy, more empowerment, more decision-making process. These all kind of transitions actually are affecting our life. And all these transitions impact on our life in every sphere. And to improve the quality of the lives of the people and to ensure their rights, I would say that rights of the challenges of South Asia have to be managed through demographic, democratic, and institutional. Because we are talking about the demographic and democratic, but at the same time, institutional management is also very important. How your institutions are working, their institutions, quality institutions, we are talking about that. And that institutions relates to every aspect of the state's level. So with this, I think that we are looking for a better future there, and you know that goal of sustainable development goals, then no one leave behind. That everyone should be incorporated. So in terms of decision making, in terms of policy formulation, in terms of right decision making, that how many children we will take, how will be our fertility, what will be our situation of the mortality level, and how can we improve the health situations, and how we can ensure a happy and transparent society where everybody, citizen, have the trust on the political leadership like that. So we need for a mature shift in some way. So this is possible, but needs more active engagement and participation and collaboration. With this, I think I would like to conclude on my presentations there. And thank you very much for joining me actually and inviting me in this important webinar. And particularly, I wish that international webinar, the state of democracy in Asia experience and expectations, it will be very much successful through all of our efforts and active collaboration. Thank you very much, and thank you again.
First of all, thank you, sir, Mohammad Mainul Islam, and professor, and he's the chairman, Department of Population Science, University of Dhaka. and he's talking about South Asia in demographic and democratic tradition, challenges and prospects.